It was 1958. David Wilkerson was a young pastor, fresh out of Bible college and ministering in rural Pennsylvania.
I kept asking myself why I was going to New York, carrying a page torn out of Life magazine.
New York City was a hard 6-hour drive away, the roads unfamiliar.
I just wish there was some way to be sure this is really God's leading and not some crazy notion of my own.
He didn't know the landmarks and didn't have a city map, but he found his way to the courthouse, surrounded by a media circus, and inside, a criminal trial.
I really didn't know what to expect. I suppose I thought there would be men, but these were just kids. 7 stooped over, scared, pale children on trial for their lives in a merciless killing.
David was determined to talk with the boys, but his only way was through the judge. When he approached the bench, the bailiff threw him out of court and into a waiting pack of photographers.
Suddenly, I knew how it would come out in the papers. Bible-waving country preacher interrupts a murder trial.
Dave made his way back home that night, embarrassed at what had happened and confused. But within a week, he was driving back to the city. He drove straight to the neighborhood where the murder had happened.
I hadn't gone half a block before I heard a voice.
Don Wilkerson, Dave's brother, remembers.
One of the gang members came up to my brother and recognized him from the newspaper.
Hey, preacher, aren't you the preacher they kicked out of the trial?
And David said, yes. He said, well, how do you know me? He said, well, you know, we read the story.
Their logic was simple. The cops didn't like me. The cops didn't like them. I was now one of them. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of myself being hauled up that courtroom aisle, and it now had a different light on it.
And that's why the gangs themselves anointed him as the gang preacher.
The same year Dave was thrown out of court, Teen Challenge began, ministering to the most hardened, desperate people in New York City.
This man opened a Bible. He began to say that God has the power to change the course of mankind. And when he said that, I got offended.
God loved us and sent his son to be the propitiation of our sins.
Dave Wilkerson came to my church, and I was attracted to his brokenness. He believed that Jesus was coming at any moment, that people would die and go into hell, and we had to reach them.
Reverend Dave Wilkerson came to me and he said, we have one of our young converts by the name of Sonny Argonzoni, been arrested 11 times, and he's been spending about $75 a day to support his habit.
He started to preach to me, and he told me that I had given everything else a chance in life, and why not try God? And I got on my knees and I asked God to come into my life.
I got down to the Teen Challenge Center in Brooklyn, New York City, and I began to ask God to help me. It was at that point that the Lord touched my soul and made me a new person.
God led us to start the ministry in Austin, Texas. And so we started with the coffee house ministry. People weren't aware of Teen Challenge in 1967.
The Teen Challenge program is not easy. I like to compare it with boot camp. But the fact is, it does prepare you for warfare.
I can remember going to court and the judge asking me, don't you want to change? You're destroying yourself. And I would answer yes to all those things. And he says, well, why don't you? And I said, because I don't know how.
Nobody comes into Teen Challenge to surrender their life. I thought at best I can get my life cleaned up and maybe know something about God. This God drove me to his word. This God drove me to that truth.
And they started praying. And I mean, almost immediately, it was like I could feel something like scrubbing me from the inside out.
I knew what it was like to wake up in the morning going through withdrawal symptoms. I knew what it was like to wake up wondering what I did the night before. I knew what it was like to get my paycheck on Friday and on Saturday be broke.
Unfortunately, I had to go through Teen Challenge, and my sister today, who is a minister, well, she's a graduate of the Philadelphia Teen Challenge, but we thank God for breaking that generational curse.
Cocaine had a control on my life that spun me down a tunnel. I didn't want to live like this. If you're an addict and you're watching this, there's hope for you.
I made up my mind that I was going to sell drugs the rest of my life. A couple of guys I knew were pimps from New York, and they would go down to Hunt's place, and that's where I got introduced to the prostitution.
I was a real mess. I'd flown to Bogota, Colombia, Karachi, Pakistan, smuggling heroin and cocaine, bringing marijuana out of Mexico, not to mention that I was strung out on these drugs as well.
The reason that Teen Challenge was so powerful to me and remains so powerful is that they care about investing in people that have nothing to offer you back.
I was angry and self-centered. I thought the universe revolved around me and the problems that I had. I lived every day dwelling on my past and the things that I had done.
God has slowly changed my heart and removed the bitterness and replaced it with compassion, love, and grace.
Somebody told me about this place called Teen Challenge, you know, with a silly name that sounded like it was for kids. And here I was, a 27-year-old married man with a small business. It changed my life forever.
I can honestly say that the tools that I learned while going through the Teen Challenge program is what has helped me throughout my entire life so far. 18 years since I entered the doors of Teen Challenge.
I had been messing around with drugs and alcohol and smoking cigarettes by 15. It didn't come easy. But finally the Lord broke through all of that pain and started to reveal himself little by little to me.
This time I couldn't quit using drugs. And I just kept thinking, let me have a miscarriage, let me have a miscarriage. And so I didn't tell anybody and I just kept using. And every day I would be like, I'm not going to use today. By the end of the day, I was using.
Before Teen Challenge, my life was an absolute misery. I was heavily addicted to prescription medicine, and it was unmanageable.
I cried out to God. I got on my knees in my jail cell and I cried out to God. And He heard me.
My life deteriorated into being a full-time intravenous drug addict, taking LSD, heroin, temazepam, Valium and everything else, going to prison at the age of 20 for being involved in selling drugs.
Heroin and crack cocaine started. In the gangs I was smoking PCP and inhaling gasoline, whatever, And then when I got with my parents, it just got really bad.
I started using drugs and my life started to spiral out of control. I remember waking up one morning and thinking to myself that I don't want to live like this anymore.
I remember thinking I didn't want to be in a program for a year, but it was exactly what I needed. I needed to learn how to rely on the Lord versus using other things to numb my pain.
My pastor brought me into Teen Challenge, and I found God, and He changed my heart and my mind and taught me how to have fun without drugs or alcohol.
So I got to the point where if I didn't have alcohol in my system, I was sick. I woke up with it in the morning and I fell asleep with it at night, and my life was miserable.
They told me that I could either go to prison for 3 years or
Teen Challenge. It was a place where I found God and was able to grow with God through all the people He put in my life.
Started living a lie, and the lie just started growing. I was continuing to drink and experiment with more drugs, and then once I found cocaine and methamphetamines, it became a party that I really wanted to go on to.
I just have this new profound sense of serving God with every aspect of my life. But the most important thing is just having a community where I invest in people.
Pretty much just ran the streets and did what I want. It really messed up my life. It tore my family apart. I was married. By that time I had 4 kids. I lost everything. I was a monster. I didn't care about nothing or nobody but myself.
I become so chained to my addiction I couldn't stop doing what I was doing. I truly just wanted to die. I ended up trying to commit suicide. I ended up in a mental institution. And also, I was getting a divorce.
I would hide my drinking. I became a very disrespectful husband. I got hospitalized about 6 times because of my addiction. I basically just took my family through a very rough road while I was drinking.
I started using meth, and I even resulted into prostitution. I just saw myself going deeper and deeper into bad ways, and I numbed myself with the drugs.
And it was realizing I had no hope. And when you have no hope in your life, there's nothing to look forward to, and you can't see an end to anything, and it's just day after day of nothing.
The changes that we've been going through since we've been here were hard changes, but they were the best changes.
Didn't really feel like I could go to anyone because everyone else laughed at me. And so that's really when my depression just really started to fester.
God's just really moved in my life, and He's still to this day doing miracles with my family and with me and with my son. So thankful for this program and the growth that it's put in my life.